Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Today is Poetry Mondays. For today, we are going to have the featured poet be Rumi. And so we are going to invite everyone to to chime in and read for us their favorite Rumi poem. You do not have to read Rumi. You can read anything that is of interest to you. But we are inviting you to go ahead and share with us your favorite Rumi. We found this will be our second time having a featured poet. And what we found was you just get a slightly more robust sense of the poet by hearing more than one of their poems. So we're excited to do this for a second week now. So we are going to do Rumi. And I'm going to start us off with one of his poems. It's the Mystical Poems of Rumi 2, and it's just compilation. It doesn't have a name. I don't know what it's called. It's one of my favorites, talking about reason, right? What's not to love? So I will get us started. And then what we do here with the Thinking Society is we do ask if you wanted to read a poem, you would go ahead and type in an exclamation in the chat, and then I'll call on you in the order in which your exclamation arises. If you'd rather, you could also raise your hand electronically. We prefer the exclamation, a little bit easier for gathering order. This night goes in 3 parts. The first part, we share poems with each other, and we're encouraging you with a Rumi focus today. Second part is we go into smaller breakout rooms to create collaborative poems together. For today, for every week, we do give you a focus and theme. Today's will be transformation. And then at the end, so it's about 20 minutes of composing the poem together. Everybody throws out lines. Then you spend 10 minutes refining your poem, maybe massaging the lines, changing the order. We come back together at the end of those 30 minutes, read the poems together, and we discuss the emotions behind the reading of the poems, the writing of the poems, the thinking about the focus and theme. So that's how this evening is going to go. Just figured I'd give you a quick walkthrough on how it's going to go together. And so now, without much further ado, let me share with you one of my favorite Rumi poems. It does not have a name, but it's in the Mystical Poems of Rumi 2. And one more thing, before I read that, I will ask for any of you who are new, we do ask you to go ahead and keep yourself on mute unless you're actually the one speaking. Thank you, and we'll get started. Reason says, I will beguile him with my tongue. Love says, be silent. I will beguile him with my soul. The soul says to the heart, go. Do not laugh at me and yourself. What is there that is not his, that I may beguile him thereby? He is not sorrowful and anxious and seeking oblivion, that I may beguile him with wine and a heavy measure. The arrow of his glance needs not a bow, that I should beguile the shaft of his gaze with a bow. He is not prisoner of the world, feathered of this world, of earth, that I should beguile him with gold of the kingdom of the world. He is an angel, though in form he is a man. He is not lustful that I should beguile him with women. Angels start away from the house wherein this form is. So how should I beguile him with such a form and likeness? He does not take a flock of horses, since he flies on wings. His food is light, so how should I beguile him with bread? He is not a merchant and trafficker in the market of the world, that I should beguile him with enchantment of gain and loss. He is not veiled, that I shall make myself out sick and utter sighs, to beguile him with lamentation. I will not bind my head and bow my head, for I have got out of hand. I will not beguile his compassion with sickness or fluttering. Hair by hair he sees my crookedness and feigning. What's hidden from him, that I should beguile him with anything hidden? He is not a seeker of fame, a prince addicted to poets, that I should beguile him with verses and lyrics and flow in poetry. The glory of the unseen form is too great for me to beguile it with blessing or paradise. Shamse Tamdris, who is his chosen and beloved? Perchance I will beguile him with this same Paul of the age. This poem, I say it's one of my favorites, but it's one of the ones that gives me most pause for thought of all the Rumi I've read. Some of, so much of Rumi is very short, very direct. This one, I have to keep turning over in my mind what exactly he's trying to tell me. So that's why it fascinates me so. So I figured I'd share with you, and so you guys could turn it over in your mind and try to figure out what exactly he was trying to share. You're welcome. So that was the one I wish to share with you guys. Go ahead and type exclamation in chat, and I'd love to hear your poems. They do not have to be Rumi, even though Rumi is the featured poet for today. First up, I have Allison.
Okay, I have The Flame of Love by Rumi. How long wilt thou dwell on words and superficialities? A burning heart is what I want, consort with burning. Kindle in my heart the flame of love, and burn up utterly thoughts and fine expressions. O Moses, the lovers of fair rights are one class. They whose hearts and souls burn with love another. I really like this one because it reminded me of Gita, and Gita's always talking about how you should focus on the center and not the externals and the superficialities. And I think it's very easy when you're thinking about love, especially when you're younger, to kind of focus on, like, if someone's saying a lot of really pretty words and really sweet things, and that's not what really matters. What matters is what somebody does, not what somebody says. Also, sometimes people, they shower you with gifts, but that's, again, it's what do they do, not what they're giving you. And then superficialities, I mean, it doesn't really matter if a man has six-pack abs. Does he treat you with respect? So I think, like, what's most important is how someone's treating you and what their heart is like, and that's ultimately the most important thing. So it just, made me think a lot of Gita. So that's it.
Thank you, Allison. That's great. Next up, I have Joe.
I think I'm going to read I Was Dead. I was dead, I came alive. I was tears, I became
fuck you say to me, you little shit!
All because of love. When it arrived, my temporal life from then on changed to eternal. Love said to me, you are not crazy enough. You don't fit this house. I went and
Okay, if you
became
start
crazy.
at the beginning, please. Sorry. Would you mind starting at the beginning, because we got rudely interrupted?
Sure.
Thank you.
I was dead. I was dead. I came alive. I was tears. I became laughter. All because of love. When it arrived, my temporal life from then on changed to eternal. Love said to me, you are not crazy enough. You don't fit this house. I went and became crazy, crazy enough to be in chains. Love said, you are not intoxicated enough. You don't fit the group. I went and got drunk, drunk enough to overflow the lightheadedness. Love said, you are still too clever, filled with imagination and skepticism. I went and became gullible, and in fright, pulled away from it all. Love said, you are a candle, attracting everyone, gathering everyone around you. I am no more a candle spreading light. I gather no more crowds, and like smoke, I am all scattered now. Love said, you are a teacher. You are a head, and for everyone, you are a leader. I am no more, not a teacher, not a leader, just a servant to your wishes. Love said, you are already have your own wings. I will not give you more feathers. And then my heart pulled itself apart and filled to the brim with a new light, overflowed with fresh life. Now even the heavens are thankful that because of love, I have become a giver of light. I think that it kind of spoke to the theme of transformation quite a bit. And I don't know, the poem spoke to me. You know, it just shows you, I guess, the dualities of life.
Great, thank you, Joe. That's also one of my favorites of his. Dave, you're next.
Thanks. Yeah, Maritza. Yeah, I gave an old poem last week that was full of noise and battle and war. This is one that's very quiet, from Robert Frost. I was remembering it as The Road Not Taken, Road Less Traveled, which that's actually the title of the book by Scott Peck. But the title is actually The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Very quiet poem. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that passing there, had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubt if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverge in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Thank you. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries. Thank you. Thank you, Dave. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to share a favorite poem with us today? Go ahead and type an exclamation in the chat box. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it's my, I don't know if I have a favorite Rumi poem, but something about the last poem made me want to read this poem. So I wonder if Robert Frost read Rumi. Does anyone know if he ever read Rumi? I don't know. He might have, obviously. I mean, it was possible, but this is called Be Melting Snow.
I'm
Totally.
sorry, which one was that one?
Be Melting Snow. That's the name of it. Okay. Totally conscious and apropos of nothing, you come to see me. Is someone here, I ask? The moon, the full moon is inside your house. My friends and I go running out into the street. I'm in here, comes a voice from the house, but we aren't listening. We're looking up at the sky. My pet nightingale sobs like a drunk in the garden. Ring doves scatter with small cries. Where? It's midnight. The whole neighborhood is up and out in the street thinking, the cat burglar has come back. The actual thief is there too, saying out loud, yes, the cat burglar is somewhere in this crowd. No one pays attention. Lo, I am with you always. Means when you look for God, God is in the look of your eyes, in the thought of looking, nearer to you than yourself or things that have happened to you. There's no need to go outside. Be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. A white flower grows in the quietness. Let your tongue become that flower. Thanks.
That was lovely. Thank you. Next up, I have Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, so this was another Rumi poem that I just had thought would probably serve as, a little bit more uplifting than the previous one that I had read. Defeated by love, the sky was lit by the splendor of the moon, so powerful I fell to the ground. Your love has made me sure I am ready to forsake the worldly life and surrender to the magnificence of your being. I just felt that was a very beautiful way of capturing people that fall for one another, that they're often willing to sacrifice certain things in order to be with each other. So I think that that's something that it's always uplifting.
Thank you, Joe. Next up is Marco.
Yeah, I'm kind of new to Rumi, and when I was looking through some of his poems, like I was just like having a bad day, and it's like I came across the this one about passion, and it's sort of like, after I read it, like I did something that I am passionate about, and kind of like, lifted my mood. So it's passion makes the old medicine new. Passion makes the old medicine new. Passion lops off the bough of weariness. Passion is the elixir that renews. How can there be weariness when passion is present? Oh, don't sigh heavily from fatigue. Seek passion, seek passion, seek passion.
Thank you, Marco. That was great. Let's see, next up I have. If anyone else would like to read their poem, go ahead and type an exclamation in the chat. In the interim, I will read for you one more poem by Rumi. This one's a very, very short one. It's almost like a quote, but I rather like it. Soul receives from soul that knowledge, therefore not by book nor from tongue. If knowledge of mysteries come after emptiness of mind, that is illumination of heart. So it seems almost more like a quote, but I like it. Shrikant, did you want to share your favorite Rumi with us? I don't know if you're ready yet. Sorry to put you on the spot.
No, just walked in. Firstly, I want to thank Paul for recommending Rumi to me. Both, he's been reading both Rumi as well as Gibran, and it's really, really fascinating. So I don't know which one to read. So give me just a second. Okay, so I'm going to read this. This is my approach to, I take in lots of poems from people. So I'm going to read this poem. It's called Lose Yourself. Let me see if I can bring it up. Sorry about this, just a little bit late. Lose yourself. Just a second.
Sorry, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
That's fine. I'm just not set up. Sorry about that.
She can't. Let me let Allison read a poem while you
Please.
gather. She's got her exclamation. Go ahead, Allison.
This is, he had these tiny poems, and then this one was really just a quote, but I really loved it. It said, "You have to keep breaking your heart until it opens," which I really love, because I think it's kind of like, it's like when you're waiting to go to the dentist, and like you're afraid to go to the dentist until you're sitting in the chair, and then you're past the point of fear, and then you're no longer afraid. And I think that's kind of like what that's like, that sometimes your heart gets broken so many times, you reach a point where you're just past it, and you're just like, all right, I'm open to it again. I just thought it was beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks, Allison. Next up, I have JP. Welcome, JP.
Good evening. I'm not sure if this is part of a larger poem. I have lived on the lip of insanity, wanting to know reasons, knocking on a door. It opens. I've been knocking from the inside. Dance when you're broken open. Dance if you've torn the bandage off. Dance in the middle of the fighting. Dance in your blood. Dance when you're perfectly free.
Thanks, JP. What about this one caught your name?
I've been reading poetry 40, 50 years, and Rumi, if you've seen me sometimes in the conversations on Jung or some of the Tao Te Ching, I'm sure at some time I've quoted Rumi. I do all the time. Rumi always has something to say that is about why life is beautiful and everything is a glory.
All right,
Awesome. Thank you.
Marisa, I'm ready whenever you are.
Spectacular timing. Go right ahead.
Okay. This reminds me of the point in Gita, one of the core points in Gita. It says, lose yourself. Lose yourself. Lose yourself in this love. When you lose yourself in this love, you will find everything. Lose yourself. Lose yourself. Do not fear this loss, for you will rise from the earth and embrace the endless heavens. Lose yourself. Lose yourself. Escape from this earthly form, for this body is a chain and you are its prisoner. Smash through the prison walls and walk outside with the kings and princes. Lose yourself. Lose yourself at the foot of the glorious king. When you lose yourself before the king, you will become the king. Lose yourself. Lose yourself. Escape from the black cloud that surrounds you. Then you will see your own light as radiant as the full moon. Now enter that silence. This is the surest way to lose yourself. What is your life about anyway? Nothing but a struggle to be someone. Nothing but a running from your own silence. The thing I like about this poem is that this is really the core idea of Gita, of saying that the core of you is the core of the universe. And you have this false notion of yourself, which is the ego, which you are attached to. And when you're losing yourself, you're actually finding yourself, which is a way of saying, go back to the center, go back to the universal principle, go back to that divinity within you. And that's where you're going to find peace. And then you'll be actually open to everything.
Awesome. I really like that. It also speaks a little bit to the theme we're going to be having, a transformation. It speaks to that as well. Right. I have a couple more folks who'd like to read. And just to remind you, the featured poet today is Rumi, but you are most welcome to read any other poem that you might wish. And next up, I have JP.
I think Allison was before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see Allison. So sorry, Allison.
Was she, or am I mistaken?
No, I don't think so. Sorry,
Okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Because I read poetry and then sometimes try to inspire the poet I read as if I can give something back to that poet for the glory they gave me. This is Rumi inspired, and this is my poem for Rumi. It's called Knowledge is a Dance. Knowledge is a dance between our horizons and our revolving stars. Our skill is how we manage to imagine it all and live the dance with our toes barely touching the ground and our smiles parting heaven and earth. Our art is what our hands and our voices summon from the spirits all around us to play the music of the stars and sunrises and sunsets. Our joy is waking up, ready to learn. Our dream is but to dream again. Our everyday is our dance, and the knowledge we know we live to dance. And that is called Knowledge is a Dance.
Lovely. I can hear it. I can hear the attempt to emulate Rumi. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Next up, I have Paul.
Yeah, I first just wanted to respond to Shrikant. I'm happy. I'm so happy you're excited. And it's funny that the poem you read and the one I read had the same theme, because in the poem I read, I don't know if you were here yet, Shrikant, but people run out looking for God, essentially. And then the ending is just, why did you bother doing that? He's right there. So he came back to that a million ways, I think, and I love it. If we have time, I also wrote a poem that it's not trying to emulate Rumi, but it's still on the theme. Do I have time to read it? It's pretty short or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, this is I did a workshop last week that involved learning some stuff, and it was a sort of spiritual angle as well as music, and this came out of it. So see if you can recognize the discipline that it's referring to. If you can't, I failed in the poem, but that's another question. It's pretty new. Okay. It's called After Breakfast. Let the sun begin your motion. Part the waters. Move as if this is the only move necessary to ever take in this lifetime. Prepare for the next with only breath mind. Let the weight shift with effortless effort. Let gravity assert its immortality. Push into its pull with clear focus. Let the hands dance in harmony. Rise to defend, 90 degrees of rotation. Let the wrists speak their language. Strike the phantom fullness from the place of emptiness in perfect balance between the poles. Rotate from instinct. 1 second equals 10 lifetimes. You are never late. The waist has the mind to lead the heart. Single whip through still air. In time to catch the approaching shadows. Flow left to focus right. Swivel without thought, hold the fiddle. The 10,000 things dissolve in retreat. All but the pure soul is left. Let the stork display his fullness. Now, do the dishes. All of them, please. That's it. Thank you.
Is it about focusing?
Well, we were doing Tai Chi all week. Tai Chi, there's a lot of references
right.
to Tai Chi
Awesome.
in there. Those are part the waters, single whip. Those are references to that.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
It's great. All right. So I see no additional hands. Last chance. Any last burning desire to share a favorite Rumi with us, or any poem that you should desire? Good night. Okay, so let's get ready to do our collaborative poem. We're going to be asking you to focus on the theme of transformation. Actually, if I may, I have to have your leave to read your poem, DLJ. So I got a haiku on transformation. I would like to share that with you guys to propel us into the second session today. So this is not written by me. And I'm sorry, maybe I should not be outing the poet. I totally outed you last week. Told everybody it was your poem. Form fetters function. Telos transforms formulae. Function filters form. So a transformation haiku. Oh, he put it in the chat. So that is by DLJ. And he has mentioned he prefers other people read his poem. So I share it with you guys. And now we'll go into our breakout rooms. The way this works is you get together. There's a moderator in the room. You will share lines together for, poem lines. For the first 20 minutes, you're just throwing out lines. Let's not get too much into what the theme brings up for you or discussions about it. Let's just poetic lines, let your poetic creative juices flow for the first 20 minutes. Then we'll slide for the next 10 minutes. You'll kind of see if any need reshaping or changing. I'm getting a message that my internet is unstable. That can't be good. Sorry. So right, in the last 10 minutes, we'll finesse the poem. Then we'll all come back here together for the third half of third half. That's terrible, terrible math there. The third section of our Poetry Mondays. I promise, guys, it's just coffee. And then together we will read the collaborative poems, and we will discuss the emotion behind listening and reading of these Rumi poems, of our own poems, and of the process of creating the poem. So we're going to, the third section is where we focus on the emotions that come out from the first sessions. Shrikant, go ahead.
Yes, I want to do, with your permission, Maritza, I want to do an experiment. And what I want to do, and with leave of you and Paul. Paul, I want to see how this collaborative poem works with just two people. So would you be all right if just the two of us are in the breakout room doing a collaborative poem and see what it's?
Sure.
Okay.
I love it. I love all experiments.
We will not even edit it. We'll just go ahead and do a collaborative poem, and let's see what the result is. Okay.
Wow.
All right. Wonderful. All right. So I have assigned all the breakout rooms. Maritza, if you could, as you're a host, you will need to enter room number 2. Okay. All right. I'm starting the breakout rooms now. 30 minutes, right? You are on mute.
Yes, 30 minutes. 30 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Would you go ahead and close the breakout rooms? I'm starting them. You can close them. Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Absolutely. All right. Let's see. So, Allison, would you like to read your group's collaborative poem first?
Sure.
And just for our moderators, I do ask that you provide me with a copy of the poem and the names of your poets. It's usually what I do. Also, 2-second admin note. Anybody would be interested in moderating in a future session, just reach out to myself or Shrikant. We'll work with you to make it happen. Sorry, go ahead, Allison.
Okay, so the title we came up with, but then we decided is not the official title. It's the joking title, is Alchemy to Alimony. But our official title is Lead to Gold. Okay. Blame DLJ for that one. All right. Water into wine, demons into swine, electric shock to Frankenstein. Who will I be tomorrow? Glaciers melting into water, water dissipating into steam. Wood, fire, smoke seems like transformation cycles. Can even ideas alchemize? Knowledge to wisdom. Lead into gold, lottery ticket into riches. Does the phoenix actually rise? Do riches really bring happiness? Remember King Midas. Metamorphosis of seeds to flowers, grubs to butterflies, ducks to swans, frogs to princes, transformed with a kiss and a wish.
That's great. Lovely, lovely. Thank you. So I'm going to read the collaborative poem from my group. We did not give it a name. O chrysalis soul, break out the light. Caterpillar day, butterfly night. Trembling, shaking, hesitantly, striving forward. Breaking, cracking, shatter, peeking out from the cocoon. Wondering if there's more. Wings fold my prayer.
Maritza, your bandwidth is low. We're getting a message saying. I think you've frozen.
Does anybody else have the poem?
She has a very intense look on her face, frozen there.
Yeah. Does anybody else have a copy of the poem? They can read it.
I'm looking, seeing if there's a way I can find it. Oh, I wish you would have chatted it already. Where would it be?
Back in there. Hang on.
Apologies, I apparently
Yeah.
have connection issues. Can you hear me? Am I back?
You're back.
Yeah.
No, sorry, my apologies to the group.
Interesting transformation you made there.
Super sorry. Yeah, apologies. I'm gonna start that one over again because my group deserves for it not to be an interrupted read. O chrysalis soul, break out the light. Caterpillar day, butterfly night. Trembling, shaking, hesitantly striving forward. Breaking, cracking, shattering of obstacles. Peeking out from the cocoon, wondering if there's more. Wings fold my prayer. I am breaking free. Thinking about the empty hole like the absorbing, soundless presence of an insect owl, never seen, visiting at night. Fear stains my being as I face the unknown. O prism of wonder, my heart, a tiny twinkling bell. Boom louder, for thy love's a well. Courage found deep within the caverns of the bones. The deeper I dive, the greater the reward. My old wings fell off, but a new pair grew back stronger and bigger. The scent of teardrops dancing between the raindrops. O timid soul, evade not this sight. Caterpillar day, butterfly night. Okay, we have our third collaborative poem, Shrikant and Paul. Let's
All right.
Name out.
Wonderful. So, so Paul, what I'm proposing to do is that I'll put up the poem. You read your lines, I'll read my lines. So it'll be like a dialogue kind of a poem. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'll try. I mean, yeah, sure, if you want. I hope my bandwidth is good too.
Okay. All right. So folks, we've just written the poem. We have not edited it. It's just direct. Okay. Are you an egg, a caterpillar, a pupae, or a butterfly?
You can be none of these things.
Or all?
My wish is not for forms.
Forms are straitjackets. They make you mad.
Even love is deceptive.
Is love a thing, a form, a feeling, a function, a mystery?
A trickster when we try to pin it down.
Why are so many pins in this world? Everyone seems to want to hold on to things.
Hold yourself, rock yourself back and forth.
Babies do it well.
They know how to trust.
What magic plays between a mother and a child?
She loves his present and his future.
And fondly remembers his past.
Is that mine? Babies transform themselves moment by moment.
Perhaps they're the best teachers of transformation.
They are selflessly forming a new self without examination.
Moment you're attached to yourself, you lose yourself.
Beware of function.
Always remember the seed germ and the seat of function from whence all grows.
Words are also tricksters.
Words are alive, but most use them only as cadavers. Have
I
you
think
seen?
that too, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Have you seen? Sorry. Have you seen a metaphor transform in your mind from a radiant vision to a beautiful phrase and then to a cliche?
Can you reverse the flow and find the beauty?
Beauty is in the voice of the speaker. He can dig into the grave of a cliche and make that beautiful vision spring to life.
He is guided by the baby.
The ever-renewing life itself.
Transformation has the original source within it.
Yet, you have to give up a lot. Let many of your forms burn themselves as you approach that center.
There is the snake molting its skin.
And the phoenix being reborn from its ashes. Don't forget the hydra that grows two heads whenever it loses one.
Can you cut off your own?
Or eat your own tail like the Ouroboros.
Courage is part of the blooming of the orchid.
Fear protects your comfort. Can one be a midwife for transformation of another? For each needs to give the birth themselves.
The new self is washed.
In what?
We are at the mercy of the midwife, her choice.
How do we choose to make a fundamental transformation that drives us to take the leap? Jung says, in filth it will be found.
The orchid agrees.
So does the lotus flower that grows in mud. So I thought this was just, I just love doing this. This is just fantastic. So thank you, Paul. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Yeah, it was it was a different experience with only two people, obviously.
Yeah,
so
and
a lot from it.
And the beautiful thing was that we didn't need to do, and we didn't do any editing at all, because this is just what was there.
So since you guys are the new format, I'll invite you first to speak a little bit more. Tell us about the process, how it was. Did you find it harder, easier to focus on the theme, or because you just said you didn't have to edit it? Did you find that you were analyzing at the same time you were writing? Like, I'm just curious as to how it worked for you.
Paul, would you like to go first?
Yeah, it's a different experience. It really is, because first of all, you have to get very calm. Otherwise, at least in my case, you feel the pressure. We're trying to alter lines. So now Shrikant said, well, if one is quiet, the other will come up with the next line. But it takes another form. You know, you can kind of be a wallflower in a group of four. And in this case, so that element is there, but it's a good drive forward, and it's fun to have a connection between the lines that is sort of easier to keep with only two people. That's about what I would say about it. It's a different experience and very interesting. Thanks for doing it with me, Shrikant.
Thank you. No, I just love this, because I find that this is like the improv version of yes and. It can work with many people, but the more you kind of know the other person, I chose Paul because we kind of think similarly and we have got some similar sensibilities. So it becomes
crushed. I don't think like you.
We should also do that. See, you are supposed to be a moderator. You can't be doing that while moderating. Maybe another time. But see, the big advantage. So firstly, I think there needs to be like a commonality of context. Like DLJ talks about, having a friend, doing like collaborative, not collaborative, but kind of going back and forth with a friend. And in some ways, like two people communication is a lot easier. When they kind of understand each other, it's a lot easier. And something, there is a integrity to it. There is a cohesion to it, which is very natural. So you don't really need to, of course, editing can make everything better. But even without editing, even the first draft has a certain kind of unity to it, certain kind of flow to it. Secondly, I like the conversational format where somebody's saying something and somebody's saying yes and to it. So that I think that flows very naturally. I find that just instead of me just trying to write it myself, this is a very significant improvement because a lot of points come in to your mind from the other person. So you are building off one another. Now, I have not done that much collaborative poetry with many people, so I don't know about the comparative experience as much, but I think that this is a very, very, it's worth trying, if you have not, if you think that this was kind of okay result, if you want to try it, I think we can do that. So I would like other people's comment on the finished product or any comments or any questions that you have. So let's.
My very first, I'm gonna jump in, sorry. I'm gonna cheat. Moderator's privilege.
Yes,
No,
exactly.
I really liked, it was lovely to see it read also in the call and answer format. It makes me want to do an in-person poetry night. That's what it makes. In my mind, I envision breaking off into pairs of two, and then the moderator just walking around to making sure everybody's okay. That's what comes to mind. Or maybe like 2 pairs of 4, so that you have your team, a team of 2 people, or like 2 and 2. That's what comes to mind for me. I love the idea of it. It seems that you do our 2 sections together because it's more personal. You get a deeper chance to ponder the theme or to focus on the theme. There's less distractions from focusing on the theme. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for that. I have some comments on other aspects of tonight, but first I'd like to hear other people's comments on this new joint collaboration.
I just want to comment one quick comment on what you said. All of these people are in different places, like DLJ in London, so it might take a while.
Yeah, I know. I guess.
But what I'm saying is that this breakout room technology is quite powerful, and it's very easy for us to kind of try this out. If people think it is worth trying it out, we can try it out, and we can give like fallback positions for people, so we can come up with a system where wherever that 2% thing is working, people can keep doing it. If it is not working, they can we can
That's
talk
true.
about it.
We could, right. I would be, yes, no, you're right. In my dreamland world, it would be everybody together, but obviously the practical solution would be to do it and Zoom. My thought would be, Shrikant, that maybe myself or yourself, we would just flit from room to room.
Sure,
just
exactly.
to poke in and make sure people are okay.
Right.
And maybe announce it 2 weeks in advance, so that people already know that the collaborative section is going to be one-on-one.
Right. So all you have to do, like, for example, there is a way for anybody in the breakout room to send a message. So what you do is that if you think that things are not working well, or you would like some help, you just go ahead and press that button, and then one of us will go in there and try to help. Something like that, because I don't want to disturb a process if things are going well.
That's true. That's true.
Always give emergency button, so you can have an emergency button.
Great, awesome. I like it. Let's see what JP has to say about this. Go ahead, JP.
3 comments. First, I like all 3 poems because there's a lot of Rumi feeling in there. Second, with Paul and Shrikant, and really on all of what we did, Paul is familiar with the idea of push hands in Tai Chi. So Tai Chi is a martial art done very slowly. And as good as we get by ourselves, we actually test our own balance and controlled power by doing our motions hand to hand with a partner. And the idea is that we don't want to lose that balance or fall over, and we're trying to stay in rhythm with the other person. And I think that's what Paul and Shrikant found, was the push hands. And the third thing is that Maritza asked me to mention what I do sometimes, trying to keep up with everybody's lines, is I go to the internet, I'll write a word in there, and I did transformation, and then I look at images that come up. And I use those images to help inspire maybe a few words or lines. Thank you.
Thank you, JP. Anton, go right ahead.
Yeah, even before I heard Shrikant and Paul read theirs, I was thinking those two working together, that's unfair. comparing it with the rest of us. Because I did a collaborative poem with both of them as we're in the group that we were in. But even like Paul's poem earlier, like they're obviously talented. So that's what I was thinking. But I'm interested in what they have to say about. It does make sense that whoever, if you're doing something one-on-one, that it has to be, it might not have to be yes and, but there has to be similar enough, Shrikant was saying similar sensibilities that he has with Paul. But what do Shrikant or Paul think about purposefully choosing someone who is clearly different than you, to do a one-on-one with? Because I fear this, even though I don't think it's actually that likely to happen, but I could see myself wanting an emergency button, depending on the person. Where's the emergency button? So yeah, that's my question.
Paul, would you like to say something? Okay, go, Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, Anton, first of all, I've done this with you guys lots of nights. The first two poems had a ton of coherence, and they were kind of, in my opinion, like shining examples of the thing working. So I just want to compliment all the groups. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff and real coherence. Like I was saying to Shrikant, it's easier for him, just any two people to be more coherent. But for you guys, it's hard. It always seems surprising when a group can do it, and you guys did it. So that's one thing. But regarding, I love JP's point about push hands, because that it might be that being with a person that has a really different views wouldn't be a problem at all, because you're playing off each other. And that did happen with Shrikant and I. In fact, I don't get into Louis Sullivan as much as you, Shrikant. So Shrikant actually changed my word form to function. And I knew in one of the lines, and I knew exactly what he was thinking, like, okay, we'll do, but we were doing a little push hands there. So, but that makes it better because you're playing off each other, just like JP said. So that's my comments on that.
Paul, I don't know. It's just that my fingers typed function. When I was reading it, I realized my mistake. And then I said, wait a minute, I don't even remember now what Paul said. Was it for? So anyway,
it was form. It was Louis Sullivan. You said no. It's function. You're
no. That's you're right. Folks, re-edit the poem. It has to be beware of forms. You have to be beware of forms.
That's all right. I loved it actually. Yes. I mean, it's exactly what I.
No. It was a mistake. It was wrong. What you had was the right thing. I just typed it and I just. Folks, we had major technical difficulties. My internet died. So I've done this all on this phone, typing with my two thumbs. So, but let me address Anton's point. Okay. I think the best analogy to this is improv. Okay. You kind of, for this kind of work, improv is a very good analogy. What happens is that two people, actually, it's easy to do improv with two people who know each other very well. It's very easy. When you add a third person, it becomes more difficult. So for example, the quality of the other two poems is actually quite astonishing. because it's not that when you have more people, it becomes easier. When you add more people, it becomes harder, much harder. So in that sense, I and Paul were cheating here. Okay, we took the easy road by just doing 2 people, but I wanted to do an experiment of how it works. Okay, because what we are trying to learn here is how to write poetry, how to actually express ourselves better, and better the format, the better it is. So now in terms of the observation about the 2 people, I wanted to do the experiment in the best possible, in the easiest possible way. Okay, so I set it up this way. But just like in improv, having somebody who is very different from you actually works very well, as long as both people actually want to do improv. That's all is needed, right? Both people should really want to do improv. If one of them says, oh, I don't want to do improv, okay, then you can't do a good improv. I'm sorry, okay? And in that case, also, if you're doing the improv with such a person, the rule is that you keep going. You keep going. And whenever they are ready, they will come in, if they will. Just say, just keep adding lines yourself. So take responsibility of being an improviser. And if that is the case, no matter who the person is, you can work with it. So that, I don't know, Anton, if that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. I'm just thinking about some of what you just said. Yeah.
That's awesome. That sounds a little bit like what you do as a moderator. Allison, speaking of moderators, Allison, what are your thoughts on this?
I think we need a road trip to New York.
Anytime. This city is welcoming. Millions of people come here.
I'm actually going up in a couple weeks to take my son back to college, and I'm actually going to be meeting with Madeline. I'm very excited about that. I've never met her in person, but there'll be other times that I'm there during the year. So, and I want to go to the Nuyorican Cafe.
Which one?
The what?
Nuyorican Cafe is this place where they do all these like amazing poets. It's in the village, and but I don't know.
How do you spell it? Can you put it in the chat?
Yeah, I can. But I know they had shut things down for quite a while with COVID, but I would hope they're back up and running. But yeah, I'll put it in.
Interesting. Nuyorican is not a very, it's kind of a little bit like a derogatory term.
Really? I didn't even know that.
A little bit. Not. It depends. I mean, it depends whether or not you're the one being called Nuyorican.
Oh, no,
well, it's a way of telling somebody who calls themselves Puerto Rican that they're not really Puerto Rican, which is why it's not friendly.
I didn't know that.
Right. Well, because you're waving your Puerto Rican flag, but you don't know Spanish, you don't know the language, you don't know the culture, you don't know how to dance, but you know the flag. So then we call you Nuyorican. It's not very friendly. You should edit this piece out.
All I know is it's this like hear poets, which would be
right. They're poets. They don't need to know Spanish. It's all good.
I didn't name
this piece. Edit this piece out, Shikant. We've gone off the rails.
I want to go and watch them read their poetry. I don't know. Whatever. I'm not getting into it. Leave me out of that.
I'm gonna redeem myself. I actually have comments to say about our today. So I will say I agree with Paul. I think that that all 3 of the poems had such a nice, lovely posh today. I think it was phenomenal. I wonder if the theme kind of had everybody a little bit more pensive. I will say, Shikant, today I violated my own rules. I went rogue. I do that occasionally, but we had a set of lines thrown up that were just powerful and they matched, and I wanted to steal a piece of the poet's lines, but I wanted to be respectful and ask. So but in order to do so, I had to go in a little bit on my thinking process for the theme and for the poem. So I went rogue a little, and we did spend a little bit of time finessing during our first 20 minutes. We actually thought about, how we thought some of the stanzas would go, like bookends. Because if you notice, we have a repetitive line. We have a line that repeats, and the line preceding it immediately is similar, not quite the same. And then in the middle, we have another rhyming couple that is, you know, so it breaks it into thirds, the entire poem. So that was done accidentally, intentionally, and I think it worked well. I really liked I love seeing that people are getting a little bit more comfortable at this editing. Like we're getting, I love the you know, someone saying, oh, maybe this should go there. And to me, my absolute favorite today was I had somebody, well, we thought we were done. We read it for the last time. And somebody's like, oh, wait, can we maybe move this line down to here? And it was the last, I think we had like a minute before, like, you know, the bell went off and we were all like pumpkins. But that one line, he didn't even get a chance to explain the reasoning, but he didn't have to. All the rest of us were like, oh my God, yes, that's perfect. I like the separation. That's great. So that was just delightful for me. And I love seeing the evolving aspect of the collaboration. And, you know, the last 10-minute section that we're doing, we've been doing it a little bit less time than we've been doing the entirety of the Poetry Mondays. And I think that people are getting used to it. They're getting better they feel better just putting lines out there because they know they have time to massage them, to change them a little bit. I also really want to point out again, I love the respect. You know, as we're getting more comfortable in those last 10 minutes, we're touching other people's lines. And sometimes a poetic stanza, it comes from a little deeper inside you. And it's hard to see somebody poking at it or moving it. So I love seeing the respect that all the other poets have as we're breaking apart lines or changing words. And I think that's, and that comes from both people who have decades and decades of experience being poets and some of our newcomers who are the newer poets. Everybody seems to experience that same, like, it's almost like you just know that you don't want to, you know, be careful. This is their little word baby. And so I do enjoy that aspect. And it was very, very much on display here today. All right, let's see. Any other comments? Anyone want to talk about what the process of going through the collaborative poem brings up for you? Your thoughts on the theme of transformation, or what some of the other poems made you think of? Go ahead, Shrikant.
Maritza, before we go on, shall we ask people if they want to try out like a 2-person breakout rooms at some point? Do you want to ask them?
Give them a choice, like this is a democracy?
Folks,
sure, I guess. Yeah.
Folks, we are going to ignore your vote, but please vote. Vote once. You can vote multiple times, but only once will be counted.
No, we're kidding. No, I jest. I really absolutely would love to know what you guys think about it. Is the idea exciting?
Yes. Yes or no, or maybe if you want, or
no, maybe. Yes or no. Maybe would be very well. Sure. Yes, no, or maybe. Oh no, we're getting crickets, Shrikant.
Yes. Okay. Yes.
Speed dating style.
Yes. Heartbeats. Okay. So what we can
eyes have it.
You know what? Yes. And what I also like Paul's idea. A simple way of doing that is to have much shorter time. Much shorter time.
Yes, you would have to. Yes.
Yeah. So it's not 30 minutes. It's maybe 10 minutes. 10 minutes, and then maybe you do it 3 times with different people. So we'll have just this ton of poems, folks.
That could be fun. Yeah, so if you hate your partner, it's okay. 10 minutes. So speed dating style. I like it. Rotating.
And Dave, what we'll do is we'll do randomized things. We'll have different people. And so you get the experience of exactly what Anton was talking about. Get used to writing with multiple people and see how it works. And we will also give an option if somebody doesn't want to participate, they can just say, okay, I don't want to do it. And then you just remain outside. If you choose to participate, you actually write poems. Otherwise, you don't have to. So that's wonderful.
That's always the way we go. We always say, you know, you're not required to. We do just encourage you to.
Right, but the thing is that we don't want to put two people in a breakout room where one person says, "Oh no, I don't want to do this."
No, agreed. Yeah, that would be very sad for the other person. That's a long 10 minutes when you're looking at yourself.
Yes.
All right. So yes. So then I would like to invite any of you to comment on the theme itself. I find I'm fascinated by the you know, just the things that come up, you know, in the poem for the group that Allison moderated. Just the imagery is stunning to me. The idea of all these things that transform, and it's almost portraying the idea that we are constantly and perpetually surrounded by transformation, and yet we do have a little bit of a fear of transformation when we consider it internally. Just curious to hear others' thoughts. Go forth and chime in. Go ahead, Paul.
It's the kind of theme I like because it's evocative. Like the mind just sort of just explodes with the word, I think. So that's what we want for themes for a night like this. Maybe, or it brings out a lot of imagination. So I like that about the theme.
I agree. And what do you guys think about doing the featured poets as opposed to the featured poem? I got very good reception last week. I rather like it. I'm curious to hear some of your thoughts on that. I'm gonna pick on you, Allison. What do you think about that as moderator? Sorry.
Yeah, I like having a featured poem because or poet, because sometimes I start running out of ideas, you know, or I tend to want to go to the same poets, and I'm trying to break out of that. So it kind of like takes some of the work out of it. Then I have to like figure out which one I want to read, but it's kind of nice to just have that direction, I think.
Awesome. Go ahead, Shrikant.
Yeah, I think I also like the idea a great deal because it does two things. Right? I think the way we are doing it, where we're saying, if you would like to read a poem by this person, feel free to do that. Otherwise, you can read anything that you want. So I like that combination. So it may be, so I want to come up with a format that works no matter what. So this is a format. For example, if people hate the poet that they've chosen, they don't read any of the poems. There will be just one poem and that's it. But it also is like an invitation of saying, hey, try to explore this poet. So you explore like maybe 4 or 5 poems. You say, okay, nothing really speaks to me. I will read another poem. Or you say, oh, this is really intriguing. Let me choose a poem. It's kind of interesting. This poem I'll read. Sometimes what will happen is that you'll read those 3-4 poems and you'll say, wow, this is something special. I'm going to read 20 poems. And then you get a very good sense. And then you come to the meetup and you will hear a whole bunch of things. So I think it's a great way of expanding our range of poems. Instead of just hearing one of the great poems, you hear multiple ones and you explore them yourself. So I think that's why I think it works well.
I agree. So on that note, we are open to suggestions for poets. I will put my suggestion for next week. I was thinking this one is a little bit selfish because this is a poet of whom I've read just a few poems, not super many, and I'd like to read more. So give myself homework, right? Hafez, and most of you probably have heard of him. Shrikant, have you read any Hafez?
I think Paul recommended Hafez to me. I've just listened to a couple of them, but not more than that.
So I feel like it's a good transition from Rumi.
Yes, absolutely, because it's like this middle, between East and the West.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
All 3 of them are in that, and it's like they have differences. It's like Rumi is more towards the East, more of East, little less as West, whereas I think Gibran has a little bit more west and a little bit less east, but both of them have considerable amount of east in them. And I don't know exactly where Hafiz fits. I've not read enough of him.
Yes, and he's Persian, so you know, a little bit maybe more middle. Perhaps he might be a nice middle ground between.
No. I think it's very simple. Like historically, like Iraq and Iran border is the border between East.
Oh, I see. You're talking literal geography. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
No. I mean, it's like connections over time of people, like Iranians and their way it works, the language, etc., is very close to the East. There's a continuation between that and Urdu and Hindi, and just flows over there. Whereas Iraq is much more integrated with the West. So that's where I, based on what I know about history, that's the kind of general, but there is mix. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to do Hafez next week, next Monday. I don't have in mind yet the theme. If you have one, Shrikant, do share. Or anyone else, by all means. You guys are awfully quiet today.
Maritza, you had you suggested culture a few weeks ago, didn't you? So
I did, didn't I? I forgot. I don't know. How do we feel about that?
Given that you gave me that homework and I wrote one for you.
Oh, right. Yeah, he did. That's right. It's in my parking lot. So yes, Hafiz and culture, that might be nice. So Hafiz does a lot of or Hafez, sorry, he does a lot of no, Hafiz is a different poet. Let me not get them confused. He does quite a few things on love, and there's some on culture. I'm cool with that. Sounds good to you, Shrikant? Great. All right, well, you guys are so quiet. Does anybody else, you can have the floor to speak about whatever you want, as long as it has something to do with poetry. Let me temper that with a little quantifier. I don't know, Shrikant. I think it's been a long day. Maybe, oh, go ahead. Go for it.
So I want to tell you, oh, wait a minute. Dave had something. Dave, go ahead.
Well, not too far off topic, but Shrikant, I had a little bit to talk to you about Gita. And I think Friday, Yogeshwar was mentioning either pacifism or nonviolence. And I've had a little trouble following, but that caught my ear. And I'm thinking pacifism, nonviolence, India, Gandhi. And I did a search on Gandhi and Gita, and there was probably a dozen books about Gandhi and Gita. One of the quotations was of Gandhi that the Gita is my mother. And I think he wrote a book about the Gita. And I thought, I don't know if that could be an extra session that might be added on after we finish the Gita, but it just the light bulb went off. That's so natural that he's been in nonviolence and led such an interesting life. But just a thought. Thank you for the time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dave. I'll look into that. I mean, what I'm trying to do is that with that series, I'm trying to keep to things which are very old. Gandhi is very new to me. He's just very so that's but it's a good suggestion. Let me look at that. Folks, I want to tell you about the meetups that are coming up. One particular meetup which actually connects very well to this one. This Wednesday, I'm just delighted to announce that Phil has agreed to do a weekly meetup on Comprehensivist Wednesdays. Okay, Phil has done meetups with us for Dante and Dostoevsky, but he is an amazing character. Okay, and for the first one, he has chosen a philologist. For those who do not know, philology is the science of studying Phil. No, it's the science of studying language. So that's what it is about. There is a gentleman called Owen Barfield, and I was looking at what I've been reading, watching videos of Owen Barfield, and I'm going to give you a quick overview right now of his core idea. He's very similar. His entire thought is very similar to that of Julian Jaynes. The core idea that he has is that language grows through metaphors. And those metaphors work in your mind to transform your consciousness. So there is metaphors, and metaphors are metaphors coming from the outside world to point to something inside. And that process of coming up with new metaphors transforms your language, transforms your thinking, transforms the way you look at the world. So it transforms your consciousness. And these metaphors have a lifetime to it. So initially, first time you hear it, you're just struck by it. You're saying, wow, that's a great way of putting it. Then slowly it becomes codified so that now everybody starts to use it. And every time you use it, you have that visual of what that metaphor means. And then after a while, you use it so much that you forget what it was actually referring to. So it becomes it's a cliche. The great poets that we are seeing, he's also a really great theorist on what poetry is. One of his great works is called Poetic Diction. And what he's saying is that what poets do is that they actually bring into language, not just into language, in thought, human thought, new metaphors that open up new ways of being conscious about things that you are not conscious of. So it's a way of expanding your consciousness. So that's what his work is about, of how the language evolves and how consciousness evolves with it. And the place where it is quite stunning, he was a friend of C.S. Lewis. He was a friend of Tolkien. So, and both Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, acknowledge a great debt to him. He is very unusual in addition to this, because most, like, James talks about metaphor going from outside to inside. So James talks about how something outside gets seen. Like, for example, do you grasp this idea? Grasp is, getting hold with the hand, and then it is used as something referring to inside. The great point this guy makes is that then you use the metaphor inside as a tool to shape the outside. So that means you bring heaven on earth. You use the language to identify eternal patterns, and then you use them to make the world better as a result of it. So it's not just one directional, it is bi-directional. So it's just profound thought. And Phil is going to give us an introduction to that, to get things started. So it's going to be this Wednesday at 9 p.m. So Joe was next.
Yeah, no, I was just actually I had a quick question. If you had the video that you were actually watching, is it the one that was actually?
I watched that one and a couple more. Yeah.
Okay, because I mean, I had known about his relationship with Tolkien, and I mean, Tolkien actually had his own language that he had come up with. So actually, that's a pretty interesting connection. But yeah, if you could put that or post it in the comments, maybe the video that you're talking about. Sure. I'd really like to see that.
It's on the meetup page.
Is it that? It's the same one. Okay.
It's the same one. So
okay.
That's the best video. There's this guy talking about his work.
Right.
If you could do me a favor of putting the link to the meetup page, then
sure,
we'll have everything, and I would love for people to join, because it's really deep ideas about poetry. It's really all his inspiration about language comes from poetry. So it's looking at poetry at a really deep level.
Awesome. Well, on that note, folks, I think our poetry evening together is coming to an end. As always, it's so lovely having you all here. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your time, your souls with me. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. We're going to have Hafez as the featured poet, and our theme is going to be culture. See you guys next Monday. Have a lovely evening.
Joe, can you stay on for a few minutes? I want to tell you more about this.
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Bye, guys.
Bye. So,
Oh,
oh,
I
great.
was just looking for the link. That's why my computer
No,
doesn't
no
move
problem.
too quickly.
Okay, I'm going to just stop the recording here. Stop. Yeah. Stop the crowd. Okay.